What up, y'all? What up? What up? What up, man? Hold on. I still ain't ready yet. I got so much going on over here and shit. Trying to do too many things at one time and shit. That's the story of my life and shit. I'm ADHD like a motherfucking shit. My mind always got a million things going at one time and shit. Let me see that. Let me see. All of those seem to be seem seem to be sending and receiving good. But nah, man, I'm sitting here texting back and forth with my wife. But yeah, I was tripping with my motherfucking wife and shit because I came across. Let me turn this down just a touch because I don't think I want to turn it down all the way because that little beat. What's up, ain't it? Take him down about right there. Yeah, that beat ain't too bad, but yeah, I was tripping with my motherfucking wife because I always used to tell her like, man, how I used to have like long hair back in the day. Like, man, my shit was on Cat Williams style, on silky shit. I was a player ass nigga back in the day, and I know she ain't never believe it and shit. And I came across a motherfucking picture. Y'all gonna see some properties I was looking at and shit. But I had came across a picture of me with long hair. I hadn't realized it, so ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Here's a picture of your boy on extra silky mode. Matter of fact, let me go here where you can see it clear. Your boy was silky. Oops. Y'all see how silky my shit was, boy? Woo! That's me back in the day, boy. I told y'all I was a little pretty little nigga back in the day, boy. Plenty hoes. Yeah, niggas don't be like handy when I tell them, boy, I used to fuck with your mama. I know your mama from back in the day. Niggas don't want to hear how I know they mama. Well, yeah, man, I used to have that silky going on, boy. Back in the motherfucking day. And so I was telling my goddamn wife about that shit. And so I had stumbled across this picture right here and shit in one of my MacBooks. And so I sent that shit to my wife, and boy, she was called herself trying to roast and that saying, like, boy, thank God you cut your hair. I tell y'all and shit. The reason I cut my hair. I swear to God, man. One day I was standing outside at my mom's house and shit on 81st and Marshfield. It's in the summertime, man. It was a bright, sunny summer day and shit. I'm standing in front of my mama building and shit on 81st and Marshfield. And the sun was shining and beaming down, but it was a nice, cool-ass breeze going at the same time. I used to always just be posted up on my mama block. I don't know why and shit, because I'm retarded. Just trying to catch a hustle. So I'm posted up on my mama block. I'm posted up on 81st and Marshfield. And the sun shining and shit, and the wind, nice, cool breeze, not too strong, but cool enough to keep. It's just gorgeous outside, man. And I'm standing on the corner and shit. And I happen to look down at my shadow, man. And I ain't gonna lie, man. My motherfucking shadow, man. That bitch, my shadow with that hair and shit, man. I just looked like a badass bitch. It was the shadow of a badass bitch and shit. And I was just like, and that shit just turned my stomach like, oh, hell no, man. And so I had to call my cousin Tony up. I'm like, hey, cuz, man, I'm finna cut my hair, man. I'm on my way to your crib. He ain't believe me shit. He thought I was just talking shit. He like, yeah, all right. He was over there getting fucked up and shit. I hop on the bus and go to his crib because my cousin Tone cut hair. I hop on the bus, go to his crib, walk in. I'm like, hey, bro, I need you to cut this shit off, man. I cut my hair. He like, man, get the fuck out of here. You ain't finna cut your hair, nigga, all that motherfucking hair. I'm like, man, I'm dead serious, man. Cut this shit, bro. I gotta cut it. He like, get the fuck out of here. You lying, man. You ain't finna cut your hair. And I just took a pair of his clippers and I plugged them bitches in. And I'm like, and I just whack a plug out that motherfucker. He looked at me and shit like, well, damn. And like, oh, well, shit, I guess you is for real, man. He like, God damn, man. He like, well, he like, sit down, nigga. Give me a minute. He like, I'm finna keep getting fucked up, but I can still cut fucked up. I remember you telling me, like, but I can still cut fucked up. On the real. Matter of fact, sometimes I cut better fucked up. On the real. But yeah, your boy had them silky. Hold on, let me give y'all another look at it. Cause motherfuckers used to be thinking I'd be lying and shit. I tried to tell them, boy, I used to have long silky shit. Boy, I put Cat Williams to shame. Y'all see them butters? Butters whipped up under that shit. On the real. I remember one of my homies and shit. I ain't gonna say his name and shit, cause he one of them like used to be ass homies and shit. I remember that nigga always used to talk shit like man, that nigga ain't black, man. That nigga like a Puerto Rican or something. On the real. Especially after I get my hair cut and shit. Like motherfuckers don't know. I try to tell motherfuckers, if you ever look at my hair like close up and shit, I don't got like nappy hair and shit. My hair grow weird as fuck, man. My hair grow like spiky and straight. That's how my beard grow. I get some partial curls and a whole lot of it be straight. That's why I have to scruff it up so I can get that fluffiness to it. That bounce to it so I don't be looking like no motherfucker dirty ass Arab. Dirty ass Arab. Man, the motherfucking Lions and 49ers they just had a nice ass competitive game and shit. Even though the NFL been kind of weak this year and shit, all these pro sports been getting weak and watered down and shit. Cause the more this establishment be trying to control them and shit, making all that shit faggoty. Thought I lost my little piece of blunt. It's my last little weed, man. Man, y'all don't know how bad of a situation that is. Boy, ain't nobody paying $1 million for that bitch. Although, I'm going to be 100% honest and shit. 100% honest. Because she dumb, but not as dumb as motherfuckers think. Talking about Whoa Vicky. if I got my hands on her, I'll cuff her and I'll make something of her because Shawty is a money maker. Cause to be honest, she's supposed to be some like nuttin' ass white trash bitch who never made it up out the hood, and that bitch turned her stupidity and dumb white trashness into motherfucking zeros. And motherfuckers gotta start getting credit where it's due. At first I ain't gonna lie, I couldn't stand that bitch, man. Like, man, this bitch is such a fucking idiot, disgraceful ass, idiot ass, dumb white bitch. But you know, after paying attention to how, man, that bitch ain't went nowhere. Start seeing that bitch everywhere get them podcast checks and feature checks and shit. Like, damn, that bitch made something out of that dumb ass shit she was doing on the internet. So yeah, I ain't gonna lie. You know, I'm gonna salute. I'm gonna get credit where it's due. But as far as a dirty ass Nigerian, black crispy ass Nigerian, too, that nigga black than the motherfucker. You can't see none of his facial features. Really. None. Look. I'll blow that. I'll go back to the blow up scene. You can't make that nigga features out worth shit. That nigga name is Cole. Unreal. Unreal. That's Cole, and he with all the smoke. Black ass nigga. I don't like Africans at all. Not all Africans. I don't like none of them sub-Saharan Africans. That don't mean that I hate them. I'm talking about the crooked ones though. You know, like women and children. I ain't talking about them. But like sub-Saharan ass Africans, like that ugly motherfucker there. You know, them West African motherfuckers. I don't like none of them motherfuckers. Unreal. I fuck with Ethiopians though. Shout out to my Ethiopian folks. Them soldiers over there. That's what I fuck with. But a whole lot, but majority of African shit, Nigeria and Ghana and all them little ugly motherfuckers and shit, I don't fuck with none of them. Because the truth of the matter, them ain't our cousins and none of that shit like that. Hell no. Them the ancestors that's left over are the motherfuckers who fought against our ancestors and sold them into slavery and shit. Them ugly motherfuckers is natural enemies. Fuck them. Yeah, I hope they always stay poor and shitty and fucked up and their life be always fucked up. I think that's just what God set out for them motherfuckers. God got a story for all of us and shit, you know, and we can just play the cards that he deal us and shit. And them motherfuckers, man, they really broke the covenant with the Creator and shit, so they gonna keep on suffering and shit. Fuck them. Unreal. But yeah, I fuck old Vicky, obviously. I told you, I think God put me here to fuck white bitches. It's just that my wife took me out the game and shit. She was kind enough to reach like my soft spot and shit, but I was out here on a mission. I was out here on a real mission. I was trying to get reparations from white girls' booty holes. That was my mission. And then I ran across a white girl booty hole that made me have a conscience. And it was just like, no, I can't do this to her. She was too sweet of a girl. On red. Too sweet of a girl. Oh shit. My wife was too sweet of a girl for me to thrash her booty hole. But yeah, I was out here trying to get reparations about these little white cheeks out here floating through America. That's just the way the world designed and shit. I was talking with my homie the other day and shit, and I was telling him, he be thinking I be joking. Well, I ain't gonna say he think I be joking. He be laughing all the time because he think the shit I say funny, but he know I be 100% serious. And I'm telling him and shit, don't nobody in this motherfucking world, nobody in this motherfucking world love a nigga more than a white bitch. That's the truth of the matter. There is some type of, man, God sent white bitches here for niggas. I'm telling you, don't nobody love a nigga more than a white bitch. A nigga will go against her, a white bitch will go against her whole family for a nigga and shit. She'll leave everybody, give up her kids, everything for a nigga. On the real. Any other kind of bitch, including black woman, shit, motherfucker, they ain't even gonna let you get in the way of they motherfucking money. Make them lose some money and your ass is out, nigga. But that white bitch, boy, that white bitch gonna die for her nigga. On the real. I heard that Asian wives are real loyal and submissive too, but I don't know nothing about Asian, and I wouldn't dare. I ain't gonna lie to you. I wouldn't dare put my dick in no sushi. No, I can't put my dick in no sushi. And I'm an animal when it comes to women and shit. Porn wise, Asians they make good porns and shit. But as far as me going inside of it, no, I don't see it happen because they smell just so different and bad. Yeah. They too fishy for me. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I can't do Asians. Nope. And I'm real. And them motherfucking Arabs get that side eye too. Them little funky motherfuckers, boy. You ever fuck around with them Middle Easterns? I used to talk to this like Indian like bitch. She used to own like a little convenience store in my baby mama neighborhood, but I was on her little ass and shit. But this bitch was fine as hell, cold, bad bitch. I'm talking about look like Jasmine from Aladdin, nigga, bad, cold ass bitch. And she wanted me and shit. You know, Indian bitches don't give a fuck about you having a woman, for those who don't know. Yeah, they used to it and shit. Indian niggas have plenty bitches. So Indian women don't give a fuck about you having other hoes and shit. So she didn't give a fuck about my baby mama. She's just like, shit, I can be a better wife than that bitch. But yeah, so I was fucking with her, but this bitch, she was just always musty and shit. And I was able to look past it for a while, but I just knew like long term, no. And I knew that, no, I don't want my dick to be musty all the time. Straight up, man. Straight up. I'm just being honest, man. These just honest conversations, man. Honest conversations we having with each other. Man, y'all see Dwight Howard baby mama going in on him? What's her name? Joyce Reed? Royce Reed or Joyce Reed? One of them motherfuckers. I said I ain't gonna get into it too much because I'm probably gonna do a stream about it tomorrow with my homie and shit. Cause he out here, he outside in the camper and shit, camped up with it, you know what I'm saying? With his other hustle in motion and shit. So we gonna have to do this live stream thing tomorrow and shit. So you know, I already made sure everybody all getting ready and prepared. So I don't really want to touch on that Dwight Howard shit too much. But I will say, man, I'm kind of torn over the situation with his baby mama because, first of all, man, that whole situation fucked up, man. With her talking about her child was getting molested for like 5 years, and Dwight Howard and Dwight Howard and his family was covering it up, man. That's some fucked up shit. And then she claiming that like shit, Dwight and his sister both got molested by the big brother and shit, and that the big brother even molested his own daughter, and that's how he got caught and shit. It's like, man, that shit deep as fuck, man. But we gonna look into the whole little story, the whole little you dig tomorrow and shit on the live stream. Me and the homie and shit. Cause I ain't got enough weed tonight to get into that story and shit. You know what I'm saying? I gotta have weed when I'm talking about other people's business and shit, gossiping and shit like a little bitch. Cause that's all the shit is. Shit, it's just the bitch in me. Anytime we on this motherfucking internet talk about somebody else's business and shit, Motherfuckers got to be honest with themselves, nigga. We gossiping. Yeah, we being a little mousy, a little bitchy, a little gossipy. It's in all of us. Some of y'all just got too much hoe in you, too much bitch in you. Little feminine ass niggas. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'm like at a day and age. I don't know how much today's society of men play a part in it, but I'm at a point in my motherfucking life where I feel like a god and shit, man, like a motherfucking conqueror wherever I go. Everywhere I go, man, I swear to God, man, I feel like the baddest motherfucker ever. On the real. I just be out here, man. I be floating through life, floating through the world and shit, trying to show love and respect to all my little niggas and shit. And I look at all you niggas like all y'all my little niggas, though. And they ain't that, like I say, that ain't even like on no disrespectful shit. That's just let you know like how big I am on myself, how good I feel about myself, nigga. I love me, boy, and I feel like I'm the greatest, boy. The greatest. Y'all know that. Y'all know everybody done heard that saying and shit like, oh, he think he's God's gift to women and shit. Yeah. Yeah, I really fucking do, man. I really think that I'm God's gift to women. My wife just happened to be the lucky woman that won the prize, you know what I'm saying? And the same thing with me with her and shit. I feel like, man, I caught my blessing when it came to my wife. I ain't let my blessing pass me by and shit. So many times in life, man, we either like let our blessing that God sent to us, we let it pass us by, or we fumble that motherfucker and shit, man. I done watched a whole lot of motherfucking niggas fumble the bag when they come to they bitch and shit. And the sad part is, nowadays in this generation, I've watched quite a few females fumble the bag. You never used to see that shit back in the day. Back in the day, women used to hold on to their men and shit. Now this generation of women and shit, they been convinced that they can do it on their own. And so you watch them fumble the bag with their family. It's like, oh, shawty, you finna be fucked up and alone. Little do you know, it's like, man, society ain't built for the woman in the long run. Shawty, no, you got some glory years where you supposed to go get your husband and y'all link up and do what y'all do. Shawty, ooh. You jagging them years off on yourself? Oh yeah, you fucked up. I watch a whole lot of females fumble the bag nowadays. But yeah, man. Oh man, it's a beautiful ass Monday motherfucking night, man. What's up, y'all? What's up? I'm trying to bring some energy, pump some positive energy out into the universe and shit for all my motherfucking people. And when I say my people, man, I be talking about black, white, you know what I'm saying? And all the different variations of black and white. I'm talking about my like-minded individuals, man. My good old-fashioned, goddammit, conservative American niggas. Conservative white Americans. I hate white liberals. I hate white liberals so fucking much. Especially white liberal bitches. Yeah, a white liberal bitch? Oh, yeah. I show no remorse and get my reparations out white liberal bitches' booty. I used to do white bitches so bad back in the day. I used to fuck them and rob them and shit, fuck them and steal from them and shit. I was a notoriously just inhumane asshole back in the day, boy. That's why I had to turn to God, boy, and start atoning for my ways and my sins and shit, because your boy was out there bad. Out there bad. But I'm finna throw this playlist on, I think, man, so I can try to relax or whatever. I might just jump up off of here, man. I don't know, man. What y'all think, man? Y'all enjoy the music and all that shit, man? Y'all want to check out some videos and shit? See what kind of videos I be watching and shit? my playlist that I put together to share with y'all. Let's see where it go. Playlist. Substance. I started with Ali Sadiq yesterday, so I kind of don't want to.
Yo, this is Ali Sadiq, man, and this is Mexican God on Booth. Big shout out to my man Sketchy Sound. Hey, y'all check this now. We about to do it, baby. Ha! Mexican God on Booth.
I'll probably last.
My story is about prison danger. Seeing that I look so.
Nope. I know y'all probably wanted to watch that, but nope. Y'all get to watch this disgusting shit.
Feral hogs are a non-native and invasive species in Texas. They may be hunted by any legal methods, day or night. There are no seasons, there are no bag limits. Our goal is to eradicate as many hogs as we can in the most efficient way possible. We have a limited amount of time between harvest and planting season to clear the hogs out of the fields before the crops get too tall and we can no longer get to them.
Fucking them hogs up.
I believe I can fly.
Hey, bro. I'd rather them white boys be shooting hogs than guns than niggas. Whole lot of bacon. Wild bacon. That's what that is, wild bacon. Bacon for everybody. They going nuts.
Oh my God.
Niggas trying to burn the bacon.
Oh, tree stump.
wonder if they got any natural predators out there. That's what somebody should try to do in places where like polar bears are running out of like natural food. See if they can introduce the wild hog out there. See if they can get some wild hogs that can survive out in them regions. That can some wild hogs that can adjust. I wonder if they got partnerships with like zoos or some place or local places, rounding up them hogs for feed and shit and other shit, feed and grease and fuel and all that shit.
UltimateNightVision.com is the ultimate source for high-end night vision and thermal optics like the Ricoh Micro featured in this video.
Pretty efficient.
But I was wondering, seeing how he got the fucking, 5-watt beam on that motherfucker. What I was wondering is why he wasn't starting from like the head of the pack. He was going from like the back up. You see, like why not start at the front of them motherfuckers and move back? You clear them motherfuckers out a whole lot faster. Right in a row. Bam, 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 bam.
Look at that root. No, wait. Bring down.
I just thought about some cool shit I could start doing, like putting this full screen view like this, putting this shit on the screen by itself on a green screen, so I could run up and illustrate on it. Cause I got a shitload of I got a shit ton of green screen. But I need to start taking advantage of. Alright, man, fuck this boring ass video.
Went faster. Right here.
yeah, the ultimate Michael Jordan video. That's what I'm fucking watching. I'm gonna play.
If Michael played today,
yeah,
he'd probably average almost 50 a game.
How many points a game would Michael Jordan average if he played in this league, this style,
Go
the way
get
they
your
play?
sons and your
more
nephews.
than his highest year, 47.
MJ would get 50.
Phil Jackson said this when he was promoting his book years ago. If Mike played today, he would average 45 in his prime.
Easy.
You believe that?
Mm-hmm.
If Michael played in this era, he'll average 50.
Many old heads who witnessed Jordan play make these claims. They say if Jordan played today, he would tear up today's league, average 50, and so on. But why do they say these things? Is it because they're all fans of Jordan? Or is it because they hate today's young players? Those are ways some people choose to spin it. But if you ask me, it's simply their honest thought of what they saw from Jordan when they played, and based on the ways the game has changed and how offense is more inflated in modern basketball. That is essentially what inspired this video. But let's take a more analytical approach and figure out how much we think Jordan would average if he played in the modern NBA. First off, before we continue, let's establish two things. 1. Michael Jordan is the greatest scorer ever, and 2. Offense is easier nowadays. Establishing Jordan as the greatest scorer shouldn't be a difficult starting point. Jordan has the highest points per game average in NBA history at 30.1, just slightly ahead of Wilt Chamberlain. Jordan also has the highest playoff scoring average of all time at 33.4 points. No one else averages over 30. MJ most scoring titles ever at 10, Wilt is second at 7, and no one other than Wilt has half as many as Jordan does. He also did all of his scoring in an era where less points were available. Brings us to the next point. Points are easier to score today. In MJ's final season with the Bulls, he averaged 28.7 points per game as a 35-year-old, and teams around the league were averaging a total of 95.6 points per game. In today's NBA, teams are averaging 111.4 points per game. Put that in perspective, that's the highest average since the days Wilt Chamberlain played decades ago. Teams currently are shooting nearly 10 more shots per game and also 3 times more three-pointers per game than when MJ retired from the Bulls. In the 1990s, Jordan averaged over 30 points per game 5 times. Entire decade, only one other player averaged over 30 points in a season, and that was Karl Malone in the 1990 season. Again, 2 players over that entire decade. In the last 5 years alone of the modern NBA, 9 different players have exceeded 30 points per game. It's a much different time. So now that we've established these facts, we have to ask, why is this happening? Why is there so much more points to go around? Well, there's several reasons. For one, back when Jordan played, you used to be able to hand check players, meaning you could place your hands on the offensive player. You could even put your hands on his hip to essentially steer him where you wanted him to go. As an offensive player, have you ever tried a crossover dribble while the defender's hands are literally on your midsection? It makes dribbling, playmaking, and creating space way more difficult. Second is the defensive 3-second violation. When Jordan played, the defending center could camp under the basket all game long without any penalties or drawbacks. It's one of the major reasons why the physical big man enforcer type has essentially gone extinct, because not only less physically now, but you also can't just camp in the paint all game long anymore. Now, as a center, you have to be constantly moving and sometimes leave the painted area, which means it's free of defense and penetration baskets often go uncontested. We know how valuable rim protection is in the modern NBA. Nothing compared to how valuable it was in the 90s, when a big man could essentially live there and was always waiting to meet Jordan when he attacked the rim. Third is the most obvious and referred to reason for the inflation scoring, and it's the surge in three-point attempts. Some have used this as a reason to be skeptical that Jordan would thrive in today's NBA. A lot of people claim that Jordan was a bad three-point shooter, but that's not completely true. It was at a point, as he definitely started out as a terrible three-point shooter, but Jordan grew into a pretty good one as his career progressed. He had a really high three-point percentage in 1996 and 1997, but those 2 years were a short stint where the NBA actually had a shorter three-point line, so let's not include those years. From 1989 to 1993, Jordan actually shot 34.3% from three-point range. To put that in perspective, throughout Kobe's prime, he shot about the same percentage from three-point range. In LeBron's last 5 seasons, he shot nearly the same percentage as Jordan as well. So honestly, Jordan's three-point shooting woes are way overblown. He wouldn't be affected negatively in this modern three-point shooting era. With all of this being said, I think it's fair to say that naturally, Jordan's scoring and dominance would increase in today's game. But to what extent? Something that is often ignored is the rate in which the NBA changed throughout Jordan's playing days. Jordan's highest scoring season was the 86-87 season, where he averaged 37.1 points per game, and the average per team was 109.9 points per game. 10 years later, Jordan again is leading the league in scoring, but now he's doing it at 29.6 points per game, and the league average is 96.9 points per game. So it's not like Jordan never benefited from more offense. Especially in the late 80s, the tempo was way different. The game had more possessions and revolved around fast break basketball. Things slowed down in the 90s, and instead, physical big men defined that era, which was played with way more half sets. If you look at James Harden's numbers in comparison to Jordan's 1987 season, you'll see that although there is an advantage in Harden's era, it's certainly more comparable. Saying Jordan would average 50 in today's NBA is probably a little much, especially when you consider this. When Phil Jackson was asked about the difference between Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, one of the things he mentioned was that Kobe was more prone to assert his game and try to take over the game offensively, while Michael Jordan did all of his damage in the flow of the team's offense. As someone who watched both players extensively, I agree with that assessment, and it's one of the reasons that Jordan was able to be so efficient shooting the basketball even as a perimeter guard. So with that being said, it's hard for me to see a player averaging 50 in any era to be coming from a guy who plays within the flow of the offense. If I had to guess how Jordan would average in today's NBA, and I'm not talking about 98 last dance 35-year-old Jordan, I'm talking about prime scoring Michael Jordan, the one that dropped 40 points in 9 straight games, 63 in the playoffs against the #1 ranked defense, and the MJ who averaged 42 points in a final series. In my opinion, that version of Jordan would average 40 to 43 points in today's NBA. It would be an efficient 40 points a game within the flow of the offense while being the best defender at his position. For anyone who thinks that's ridiculous, listen to this closing thought. When people say Jordan would average significantly more in the NBA, it's not because they worship Jordan, it's because people who really know basketball recognize the nuances and greatness of Jordan's game and how that translates to the modern game. Jordan would take advantage of today's more open version of basketball because he had all the skills and was poetry in motion. The vast majority of his moves were and methodical. There wasn't unnecessary dribbling, his handle was tight and calculated, his footwork was pristine and reliable, he had a fantastic hesitation dribble, and he could attack you in so many ways. If he couldn't simply elevate over you, then he would wait and shoot his descent. That's an unorthodox way of shooting the basketball, and few can hit that shot very often. But nobody did it as well as Jordan did. His fadeaway was extremely efficient and near impossible to block. As he's falling a couple feet back, while elevating as he does, how can the defender possibly contest it? Jordan could basically get a quality shot whenever he wanted. If he decided to attack the basket, he had one of the quickest first steps of anyone who's ever played. You could simply hack him to try to stop him from scoring, but with Jordan being an 83.5% throw shooter, do you really think that's a legitimate solution? Not to mention how Jordan is one of the greatest ever at finishing through the contact. So even if you tried to hit him and make it more difficult in that way, many times it just turned into one. You couldn't play tight on him because he was too quick and would often get past you. You couldn't play off of him because he was too lethal from the perimeter. If you pushed him to his right, he had numerous counter moves to punish you. If you pushed him to his left, he also had numerous counter moves to punish you. And on top of all of this, everyone knew you should him off, because believe it or not, somehow that always made him even better.
Many of the greatest players in the modern game operate as the team's floor general. They might not be listed as the point guard on the scouting report, but let's make no mistake, many of these players are controlling the offense as if they're the team's point. What this translates to is simply higher production and higher averages across the board. Typically, when a player is appointed as a point guard or as the team's floor general, his usage rate increases as he now becomes a more ball-dominant player. This is one of the main reasons why players like James Harden had their assist numbers dramatically increase after being moved to the point guard position. It wasn't that he all of a sudden became a great passer, but instead, it was the fact that the offense was now ran through him, which naturally boosted his numbers. As great and as record-shattering as Jordan's numbers were, for the most part, he never had this luxury working in his favor and boosting his numbers, like many other greats have. Well, that is, with a small exception of the final quarter of the 1988-89 season. At the time, the Bulls had a 34-24 record and were looking to move up in the standings. Bulls head coach Doug Hollins noticed how Jordan had been having a significant impact in numerous ways on the court, as he was putting up his best all-around numbers of his young career. This is when Collins decided to make a significant change that was pretty uncommon during that era. Collins moved the 6'6" from his usual shooting guard position to the point guard spot, as a way to pick up the tempo of the offense and allow Jordan to have more control over the game. What ensued was one of the most dominant individual stretches of NBA history. On the very first game against the Seattle Sonics, Jordan firmly established himself as a distributor as he handed out a remarkable 15 assists. The very next game against the Indiana Pacers, Jordan had 21 points, 14 assists, and 14 rebounds in only 30 minutes of playing time due to a 32-point beatdown. He would have had a real shot at the historic 20-20-20 game if he had played his regular workload of minutes. Jordan remained at the point guard position for the final 24 games of the season, and in those games, he averaged 30.4 points, 9.2 rebounds, 10.7 assists, and 2.5 steals on 49.8% shooting. To go along with this ridiculous near triple-double average, Jordan had a streak of 7 straight triple-doubles and 10 triple-doubles in 11 games. In the game that Jordan didn't get a triple-double, he poured in 40 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds on 61.1% shooting. On another night, in a 15-point victory against the Blazers, Jordan dropped 34 points, 17 assists, 7 rebounds, and 6 steals on 50% shooting.
You can't compare nobody to him.
Those 17 assists were his career high.
Nobody.
This game against Portland was also the beginning of an incredible streak that I rarely hear anyone mention. Over a 12-game stretch, Jordan had at least 10 assists in every single contest. To put in perspective just how incredible that 12-game streak is, consider the fact that all-time great distributors and stat stuffers Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Jason Kidd have never had a streak longer than MJ's of games with at least 10 assists. To put it simply, Michael Jordan wasn't just great at the point guard position, but he appeared to be playing like he was the greatest point guard of all time. This is one end of the court though. Despite spending so much energy on offense as a point guard, Jordan still had the responsibility of locking down opposing perimeter players, and unlike players who use their offensive load as an excuse for their lack of defensive intensity, Jordan still brought it on the defensive end every single night. Not only was Jordan 3rd overall in steals per game, but he also finished the season on the NBA's first team all-defense. He was 5th overall in defensive win shares, 1st overall in defensive plus-minus, and finished that season in the 5th spot for the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year. Jordan and the Bulls made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they were eliminated in 6 games by the bad boy Detroit Pistons. After yet another defeat at the hand of Detroit, Chicago's management decided that it was time to shake it up and fire Doug Collins from his head coaching position. He was replaced with the legendary Phil Jackson, and thus the triangle offense was implemented, and Jordan's days as a point guard were now behind him. Jordan's numbers at the point were utterly but let's be honest, his numbers earlier that season, before he switched positions, were pretty nuts too. The major what-if question that this video raises is what if Jordan had remained at the point guard position throughout his career? How would that have affected his career numbers? Well, at the very least, we can make an educated guess based on how Jordan's numbers adjusted during the 1990 season. You'll see that from his 57 games as the shooting guard to his 24 games as the point guard, his scoring decreased by about 9%, his rebounding increased by around 17%, and his assists dramatically increased by a whopping 35%. So now, if we take those same percentages and apply to Jordan's career numbers, we're now looking at averages of 27.4 points, 7.3 rebounds, and 7.2 assists per game. What I can't help but notice is how Jordan's career numbers as a point guard are strikingly similar to another all-time great who consistently ran his offense back, and that is LeBron James. With MJ's adjusted averages, their career numbers are now nearly identical to one another. Obviously, over time, this change in play style could have affected other aspects of Jordan's game, like an increase in turnovers, potentially more injuries due to his increased work, and maybe he even wins less championships as a point guard rather than playing within the system of the triangle offense. It's impossible to say for sure, but at the very least, this perfectly summarizes how a player's perception, production, and impact can dramatically change with a simple switch of a position.
Amongst basketball fans, it's common knowledge that Michael Jordan was the ultimate competitor and always looked for some kind of angle to motivate himself to become better than his opponent. It was basically the theme of his career, to such a point that it became a meme after the world witnessed the Last Dance documentary. Despite all of this, I've never seen a video about the first instance in the NBA where Jordan took something from a competitor personally. That's where this video comes in, as we evaluate the revenge game of a rookie still yet to make his mark on the sports world. It's the night of November 1st, 1984, and the Bulls are in Denver, Colorado for an early season matchup with the contending Denver Nuggets. The young Michael Jordan only had 4 regular season games under his belt at this point, and after those first 4, he was averaging about 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists on 46% shooting. He definitely hadn't yet become the icon that we know today, but with these first 4 games, people could tell that he was definitely an elite talent and a rising star in this league that defenses had to take note of. On this night, the player who had the assignment of Jordan was the 6'4" shooting guard Theodore Roosevelt Dunn, more commonly referred to as TR Dunn. The veteran Dunn was one of the best defensive players in the entire league at this point, as he had made the NBA's All-Defense team in the previous 2 seasons, and he would go on to earn a selection this year as well. Both Jordan and Dunn were looking forward to that night's solo battle, as one of the best scoring guards was facing one of the best perimeter defenders. Once the game began, Jordan had his moments with some of the incredibly athletic moves that you would expect from a young Michael Jordan. But what some may find surprising is that Dunn actually got the last laugh, as he contained Jordan well below his average, as MJ had one of his worst games of the year, scoring only 17 points on 7-15 from the field. He didn't look like the best player on the court that night, as 5 other players outscored him, and as a result, the Bulls were handily defeated with a final score of 129-113. This embarrassing loss stuck with MJ, and according to former Bulls assistant coach Fred Carter, Jordan never forgot about this game. He was contained by TR Dunn. Since it was an out-of-conference matchup, the Bulls and Nuggets would only play each other twice this season, and the second matchup wouldn't come until a couple months later. On January 14th, 1985, the Bulls and Nuggets were set to square off again, this time in Chicago Stadium. For TR Dunn, it was just another night of trying to guard one of the premier scorers of the league. But for Michael Jordan, this was the game he had circled on his calendar for the last couple of months, and had been on his mind throughout. Unfortunately, this was one of those legendary games that we have absolutely no footage of, which is actually pretty common for Michael Jordan's early career. This probably has a lot to do with why no one ever talks about this game. Regardless, we still know how this evening went for both Jordan and Dunn. This game was close at the end of the first half, but in the third quarter, Jordan rolled his ankle and was dealing with a significant amount of pain. The Bulls coaching staff tried to convince Jordan to sit out the rest of the game, but according to the assistant coach Fred Carter, Jordan kept saying, "I gotta play, I gotta play," as his mind was focused on earning the victory and getting his revenge on TR Dunn. Apparently, the ankle injury was so bad that Carter even went as far as saying that no one else had been able to play through it. But a young and fiercely competitive Michael Jordan was not so easily deterred. Not only did Jordan continue to play through the pain, but he completely erupted in the fourth quarter, ultimately leading his Bulls to a 122-113 victory.
Jordan finished with 35 points, 15 assists, 14 rebounds, and 3 steals on 68.8% shooting. He led all players in points, assists, and rebounds. Not only was this Jordan's first revenge game that we know of, but it was also the very first triple-double of his career, which is something that he would do quite a few times afterwards. Assistant coach Fred Carter said that the message to TR Dunn was sent and received, as Jordan vanquished his first victim of his extremely vindictive career. It's a short and sweet video, but I thought it would be cool to cover one of the rarely discussed moments of Michael Jordan's career, while also giving some attention to one of the great forgotten defenders of NBA history. When some fans think of Michael Jordan's most incredible seasons, they usually think of his championship seasons with Phil Jackson, where Scottie Pippen had developed into a legitimate co-star and where Horace Grant had emerged as a third scoring. But I would argue that from an individual perspective, MJ's most incredible season came long before all of that. In his first 3 seasons as a pro, Jordan took the league by storm. But what he did in his 4th year was on another level entirely. It's important to note that this was not the Chicago Bulls dynasty that people would come to know. Not a single player other than Jordan was an NBA All-Star. And in fact, outside of a 38-year-old Artis Gilmore, who averaged just 4 points, no player other than Jordan had ever been an All-Star in the entirety of their careers up to that point. The Bulls' second leading scorer was the 6'2" guard named Sam Vincent. Up to that point, Vincent was a guy who had never averaged at least 10 points per game, and was also a player who struggled to stay on the floor due to injuries. To say that Jordan would need to carry this squad in order for them to make the playoffs would be a tremendous understatement. In the previous season, Jordan had taken a massive step forward defensively, as he led all guards in blocks and was second overall in steals, yet he didn't make the NBA's first or second all-defense team. Knowing MJ, he probably took that personally, and used it as motivation heading into the 87-88 season. On both ends of the court, Jordan stormed out of the gates, like he was a man hell-bent on revenge, as he was locking down opposing superstars while torching them on offense. MJ played all 82 games, and by the end of the regular season, he put up averages of 35 points, 0.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 3.2 steals, and 1.6 blocks on 53.5% shooting. Throughout the regular season, MJ won basically everything he possibly could have. He was the scoring champion, he was the steals champion, he won the NBA's dunk contest, he was the All-Star Game MVP, he was the Defensive Player of the Year, and he was the league MVP. The amount of records he set this season was insane. He became the first player in NBA history to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. He's the only player who's ever averaged at least 30 points in a season while winning DPOY. And again, Jordan averaged 35. And his 1.6 blocks per game was the highest average by a guard in NBA history. I should also mention that only a third of the way into the regular season, the Bulls traded the 38-year-old Artis Gilmore, which means that Jordan led a team with no All-Stars and with players who had never been All-Stars to a remarkable 50-32 record, which was good enough for the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. Right there is the definition of a carry. People rarely mention this, but MJ's incredible run didn't simply end with his record-breaking regular season, but he continued his dominance into the first round of the playoffs. Against the 6th-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, Jordan scored 50 points in the series opener. In the very next game, Jordan dropped 55 points, becoming the first and only player to ever score 50 points in back-to-back playoff games. By his standards, he had a disappointing performance in Game 3 and scored only 38 points. Jordan led Chicago to a dominating series victory, defeating the Cavs in just 5 games. These were Jordan's numbers in each of those 5 games, and his averages for the series as a whole. His 45.2 points per game average is the highest ever in a 5-game playoff series, and the fact that he did that on 56% shooting as a shooting guard is utterly insane. Finally, the momentum came to a halt in the Eastern Conference semifinals, where the Bulls ran into the vastly more talented Detroit Pistons. Jordan still did what he could as he put up these strong numbers that series, but it wasn't enough as the title contending Pistons closed it out in just 5 games. I've heard people argue about which version of MJ is the best, 91, 96, or 98. I understand that those versions won the championship, but for myself personally, there's no way I'm taking anything other than the record-breaking, two-way dominating 1988 version.
It's one of the biggest what-ifs of NBA history, and one of the biggest arguments that Jordan stans will make in favor of their hero. The narrative is that if Michael Jordan never retired at the end of the 1993 season to go play baseball, then his Bulls would have won the championship in 94 and 95, equaling 8 straight titles for the Bulls from 1991 to 1998. At first glance, it makes sense why many people would make that assumption. During Jordan's reign, he was clearly the league's best player and had no equal. Once Scottie Pippen was completely healthy and rose to all-star status, they began winning championships and almost never looked back. The thing is, there is a lot of variables in this scenario, and since we're talking about the legacies of several players involved, I think the topic deserves more in-depth analysis. Several YouTubers have covered this topic already, including an excellent video from Rusty Buckets, which I recommend checking out. I agree with almost everything he says. With that being said, this is my personal take, and I believe I have a unique perspective to offer on the matter, and I'm also curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. First off, players constantly talk about how hard it is to win 3 championships in a row. Other than the Chicago Bulls, only the Celtics in the 60s and the Lakers of the early 2000s have been able to do it. There are a number of other teams that we've described as dynasties but never achieved the feat. Although the Bulls three-peated twice, winning 8 in a row is something else entirely. With each trip through the playoffs and into the finals, there's more wear and tear on the team as a whole, and the team has less time to recoup and recover in the offseason. Players have spoken about this championship fatigue many times, but imagine the pressure and labor of having to defend your titles 6 times straight. Not only that, but there's also the aspect of team motivation in comparison to team complacency. Sitting on the mountaintop over and over again can make you become relaxed and complacent. It's hard to envision the Bulls being as hungry as the 28 other teams in the league if they're winning for nearly a decade straight. But if there's a player and leader other than Bill Russell who could pull that off, my money would be on Michael Jordan. So it's tough to say how much a lack of motivation and championship fatigue could play a role, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Another aspect and narrative, Michael Jordan was rusty for the Bulls' playoff run in 1995. Jordan retired in the summer of 1993. He missed the entirety of the 93-94 season, but he actually rejoined the Bulls with 17 games left in the 94-95 regular season. Although Jordan was still lethal, and although he had signature performances, like his 55 points just a few games into his return, overall, there was still some signs of rust. In the 17 games Jordan played in the 95 regular season, Jordan averaged 26.9 points on 41% shooting. Seems like nice numbers, but those are weak by Jordan standards. Throughout his career up to the 95 comeback, Jordan had averaged nearly 6 more points and was more than 10% more efficient from the field. Even his free throw shooting was almost 5% worse than his career average. Some people will point out that his numbers did pick up from the regular season into the 95 playoffs, which is true as he averaged 31.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists on 8.4% shooting. But as impressive as these numbers look, believe it or not, these were also well below Jordan's normal averages in the playoffs. He was averaging a few less points, slightly less rebounds, fewer assists, and wasn't shooting as efficiently. Jordan was even averaging significantly more turnovers, which is typically a sign of sloppiness, and dare I say, even rustiness. Beyond even all the numbers was what people were witnessing with their own eyes. Throughout the 95 season, people in the basketball community were saying that Michael Jordan didn't look like the Michael Jordan we were used to. He wasn't putting up his usual numbers, he wasn't taking over games to the same extent as before, and more importantly, making clutch plays when it mattered most, and was even making mistakes that cost his team. And due to this, and a couple other factors we'll get into, the Bulls lost in 6 games to a great Magic team in the 95 semifinals. Even Nick Anderson of the Orlando Magic said that the 45 Jordan wasn't as good as the 23 Jordan. All of this leads me to believe that Michael Jordan was in fact rusty. I mean, to even suggest that a player who rejoins his team with 17 games left in the season, having missed training camp, and chemistry building games with his new teams, after playing a completely different sport for the last year and a half, could simply jump into the starting lineup and be the same player seems crazy to me. Now that doesn't mean that we need to pretend that this series never happened or just ignore it when it comes to evaluating Jordan's legacy. This series still happened, but what it does mean is that in a hypothetical scenario where Jordan doesn't retire in 98, we would definitely be getting a sharper Jordan in 95. With that being said, there are still a couple other gigantic factors in whether or not the Bulls could have won 8 straight. If a Michael Jordan-led Bulls team made it to the NBA Finals in 1994 and 1995, standing in their way would have been an opponent they've never faced on that stage before, the Houston Rockets. The Rockets were incredibly strong at a position the Bulls not, the center position. Hakeem Olajuwon is one of the greatest players of all time on both sides of the basketball. During Hakeem's championship runs in 94 and 95, he had historic performances where he torched the likes of Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, and David Robinson. If those legends couldn't contain Olajuwon, then a 36-year-old Bill Cartwright certainly wouldn't have either. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Bulls teams with dominant big men. The Bulls had also continuously eliminated Eastern Conference powerhouses led by Patrick Ewing, Shaquille O'Neal, and Alonzo Mourning. But a prime Hakeem is something else entirely. He definitely would have got his. Surrounding Hakeem were several other quality shooters and perimeter defenders. 1994 would have been a colossal finals matchup between two of the best teams from each conference. The Bulls would have been led by their core of Jordan, Pippen, and Horace Grant, while the Rockets would be led by Hakeem, Robert Horry, Otis Thorpe, and Vernon Maxwell. It's very possible that the Bulls make up the gap at the center position and still manage to win the series, but this would certainly have been their biggest challenge yet. Now the Bulls have hypothetically defeated the Rockets to win their 4th straight championship, but this now brings us to the biggest factor in the Bulls' quest to win 8 straight titles. Let's jump back into our reality where Jordan did retire to play baseball. Context is extremely important here. The Bulls were led by their dynamic duo of Jordan and Pippen for their championship runs in 91, 92, and 93, but often overlooked was their starting power forward and their third best player during those championship runs, Horace Grant. Horace not only contributed significantly on offense during those years, averaging around 15 points a game, but he was also pivotal to the Bulls' success with his interior defense. Grant was around in Chicago for 1 year after Jordan's retirement, where his and Pippen's 93-94 Bulls made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals before they were eliminated in 7 games by Patrick Ewing's New York Knicks. After the season was over, Grant enters into free agency, and now Grant is looking around the Bulls organization, and unfortunately, he sees no Michael Jordan, but he sees Jerry Krause, a general manager who basically none of the players like. He sees Scottie Pippen, who's a questionable leader to say the least, who's frustrated with the organization and feuding with management and may get traded at any point. And all of this tells Grant that this organization is headed downhill, and the time to get out is now. As a result, Grant leaves Chicago in the summer of 94, which looks like a brilliant move at the time. He left a Chicago squad who wasn't winning any championships without Jordan, and he was joining the new rising power in the East, the Shaq and Penny or Magic. If Jordan never retires and the Bulls are coming off their 4th straight championship heading into the summer of 94, well then there is almost certainly no way Horace Grant ever leaves the Bulls for the Magic in free agency. Remember, this is the same Magic team in 95 that now had Grant that went on the Bulls in 6 games just shortly after Jordan's comeback. Grant switching sides was a huge factor in this series. If Grant is a member of the Bulls' Big Three instead of the Magic's, well then the Bulls may end up winning that series. If Grant never leaves the Bulls because Jordan never retires, then the Bulls don't have an opening or even a need at the power forward position. But in hindsight, this fact is actually devastating to the Bulls in the long run. The Bulls have a need at the power forward position because of the void left by Grant, and that's why they traded for Dennis Rodman in the summer of 95. At the time, the Rodman trade was actually quite controversial for Chicago. Rodman was seen as a head case and a loose cannon. Maybe Phil Jackson could handle Rodman, but we didn't know that. Some people even thought that Rodman could be the thing that destroys the Bulls organization from the inside, and there were decent reasons to speculate that. The 2 years before Rodman joined the Bulls, he had had plenty of off-the-court issues. He served suspensions, he had been violent on the court, he had been in a motorcycle accident, and so on. Calling it a potential distraction is putting it lightly. With Grant still in Chicago, there isn't a hole in the Bulls starting lineup, so they're never desperate enough to risk the Rodman trade in the first place. So now, without Rodman, Not only are we not sure if the Bulls win in 94 and 95 against the Rockets, but now we're not even sure if they're winning in 96, 97, and 98 against the Sonics and Jazz. Many people believe Rodman should have been the finals MVP in 96 instead of Jordan. That's how full and crucial he was to their success. So with all of this considered, ultimately my conclusion is the Bulls would have likely not won 8 straight championships if Jordan never retired to play baseball, even if it means they win in 94 and 95. Now, is this statement a fact? Of course not. It's simply my opinion based on the information we have. Honestly though, I think it's funny how the biggest Jordan fans have to argue so strongly for the 8 straight narrative, as if 2 3-peats in 8 years isn't enough to prove that Jordan is the GOAT.
I felt like we were in a position to win, and we pushed them to a Game 7 in their building.
That's the Scotty migraine game, right?
Yeah.
Heading into the 1989 to 1990 season, the Bulls were coming off of their second straight year being eliminated at the hands of the Detroit Pistons. Chicago had also fired Doug Collins from his head coaching position and promoted Phil Jackson to lead the team moving forward. It was a controversial move at the time, but ultimately a brilliant one that would pay off almost immediately. Along with that, Scotty was a bit of a slow bloomer, but was now poised to have his breakout season. He improved all of his averages across the board and experienced his first season as an NBA All-Star. This would be the first time Jordan would play alongside of another All-Star. Behind the lead of Michael Jordan and his monstrous numbers, the Bulls won 55 games, which was the second most in franchise history. They certainly weren't favorites in the East heading into the postseason, but they had greatly improved, and it was starting to look like they might actually be ready to finally dethrone their rivals, the reigning Detroit Pistons. A gentleman's sweep over the Bucks and 76ers in the first 2 rounds, the Bulls were meeting the Pistons for the 3rd straight year, this time in the Eastern Conference Finals. It was a hotly contested series, but at the end of Game 6, they were tied at 3 games apiece, with the series heading back to Detroit to decide who goes to the NBA Finals, where it was anyone's game. There were 2 major issues for Chicago heading into that game. The first was the absence of their starting point guard, John Paxson. He injured his right ankle in the 3rd quarter of Game 6, and from that point on, his season was done. John was one of the Bulls' best perimeter shooters, and to say the Bulls would miss that aspect of his skill set in Game 7 would be a massive understatement. More on that later. Their second major issue was the well-documented Scottie Pippen migraine. Pippen described his symptoms as seeing double, blurred vision, and numbing pain. When the game started, Pippen was unable to make a positive impact on either side of the court, shooting only 1 for 10 from the field for a grand total of 2 points, while simultaneously being outproduced by his defensive assignment, Dennis Rodman, who put in 13 points and 9 rebounds on a near-perfect 7 shooting from the field. Jordan was playing the biggest game of his career up to that point without his number 2 option and without his starting point guard, who was a great perimeter threat as well. Given the circumstances, MJ would have to have a tremendous game for the Bulls just to keep things interesting, and a great game is what he had. Despite the elite Detroit defense, Jordan poured in 31 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds on 48% shooting. Sadly, this was nowhere close to enough, because it wasn't just Pippen who appeared to be having a migraine, but it almost every other Bulls player did as well. Horace Grant was the only Bull other than Jordan to score in double digits, and he shot a terrible 3 of 17 from the field. As I mentioned earlier, Pippen shot 1 of 10, Greg Hodges shot 3 of 13, Bill Cartwright shot 3 of 9, and BJ Armstrong shot 1 of 8. All of the Bulls and Jordan shot a combined 23.8% from the field. That wasn't just terrible, but collectively, it was one of the worst performances from a supporting cast in playoff history. Watching the game again recently was absolutely brutal. The Chicago role players couldn't hit a perimeter shot to save their life. It's remarkable that Jordan even managed to get 9 assists out of that group, considering the fact that the majority of his teammates' shots were bricks. If Chicago had made just an average amount of their jumpers, Jordan would have easily had 15 plus in the game. As I said earlier, John Paxson was missed quite dearly. When you factor in Jordan's assists and points, he orchestrated a whopping 67% of all of his team's points. It wasn't just offensively where Jordan must have felt alone, but defensively as well. Jordan locked up Joe Dumars, who was the team's second best player and their number 2 scoring option, while pretty much every other Piston who played major minutes was very productive. Dumars shot only 2 of 7 from the field and had only 7 points, while Isaiah Thomas had 21, Rodman had 13, Lambeer had 13, Sally had 14, and Mark Aguirre had 15. The Pistons outside of Dumars shot a tremendous 54% from the field. Despite MJ's best efforts, the Pistons were ahead comfortably for most of the second half.
ultimately won the game with a score of 93-74. The Pistons then went on to beat the Portland Trail Blazers in the 1990 NBA Finals. It's crazy to look back and see that if the Bulls hadn't had multiple extremely untimely injuries, and if Jordan had even just a bit of help, there's a strong likelihood he would have won 7 championship rings instead of 6. This game is one of the huge reasons why I never agreed with the narrative that Jordan started winning championships when he started trusting his teammates. Jordan had plenty of times early in his career where he looked to facilitate and trusted his teammates with the game on the line. He averaged 7 assists over the entirety of the 1990 playoffs, which is extremely high for a shooting guard, especially during that era. In that deciding 7th game specifically, Jordan managed 9 assists with teammates who shot 23%. Despite the fact that that game had a giant magnitude, Jordan frequently kept looking to his teammates even though they kept letting him down. He often relied on them and they still lost. 1 year later, the Bulls as a whole, not just Jordan, came back stronger, healthier, and more prepared. They swept the Pistons in the 91 playoffs and the championships started stacking up from then on. So no, he didn't start winning championships when he started trusting his teammates. Jordan started winning championships when he finally got an adequate supporting cast that's necessary for winning the championship.
They're the 2 greatest shooting guards of basketball history, and although they sometimes appeared as mirror images of one another in terms of style, mentality, and personality, both individuals were actually much more different than the fans typically recognize. I've witnessed countless hours of both of these legends playing the game of basketball, and today, I'm breaking down every major difference that I could recognize in how the 2 approached and played the game. Obviously, this is just my own limited perspective, so let me know in the comments what are some differences that you've noticed. Number 1. Michael Jordan had much bigger hands. To people who don't know basketball on a deep level, this might initially seem like an insignificant detail, but it's actually quite the opposite. Phil Jackson has spoken in depth about the advantages Jordan had due to his monstrous hands, and even Jordan himself has elaborated on the edge it gave over the competition. Jordan's hands weren't just large for his stature, but he actually had some of the largest hands of any player of NBA history. With Jordan's massive mitts, he could easily palm and control the basketball, and he could use pump fakes and misdirect players more easily. It also allowed him to effortlessly alter and change his shot in midair, which would certainly be more difficult for players who had less control of the basketball due to their smaller hands, and obviously, in an era of hand checking, it made Jordan even more difficult defensively. In an interview in 2013, Kobe spoke about the difficulties of developing his game without that inherent advantage, saying, "Michael was blessed with massive hands, and Dr. J as well. I wasn't. I have big hands, but Jordan and Irving can literally pick up the ball like an orange. So I've had to do things to strengthen my forearms to make sure that I have the grip to be able to do it. They obviously had the natural capabilities to do it. I had to work to get the strength to be able to do it." Number 2. Kobe was a harder worker. This is certainly a bold claim, and isn't meant as a slight to MJ. He's certainly one of the hardest working basketball players that the game has ever seen. But on the other hand, Kobe has an argument for being the hardest working athlete of all time. As I mentioned in a previous video, the great Phil Jackson made this bold claim himself, which is quite stunning since he spent all of his coaching career with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Feel free to pause the video for time to read Phil Jackson's full quote. As legendary as Kobe's drive was, I could even argue that it was sometimes a negative for Kobe, as he pushed himself so hard that it sometimes had lingering effects on his body. The Mamba was known to play through injury, play heavy minutes, put an insane amount of time into the gym, and apparently lived most of his basketball life on only 4 hours of sleep each night. With an insane work ethic like that, it's no wonder why he's one of the greatest players of all time. But then again, it also makes sense why he dealt with so many injuries throughout his career, considering the fact that he willingly put so much strain on his body. Number 3. Kobe was a better perimeter shooter. Numerous people have made this conclusion, including Michael Jordan's longtime teammate, Scottie Pippen. When you look at their three-point percentage next to one another, Kobe has a very slight advantage, and it's so close that you could basically call it a tie. But one of the key differences was the fact that Kobe had a much higher tendency of shooting three-pointers, as he shot more than 3 times as many as Jordan did over the course of his career. Some of that has to do with the surge in three-point attempts as the game has evolved, but even just for inflation, Kobe still had a higher tendency of three-point attempts.
analytics have proven that as you take more shots, percentages generally decrease, because you can be less selective with your opportunities, and yet despite that, the Mamba maintains his edge. The perimeter shot advantage isn't just about three-pointers though. Kobe loved to take shots in rhythm just a step or two inside of the three-point line. The Mamba was excellent at these shots, whether he was open or contested. With that being said, analytics show that generally these are the most inefficient shots on the court, mostly because of their distance and lower conversion rate, while still being worth only 2 points. Which brings us to the next difference. Number 1, Michael Jordan had better shot selection. It's no secret that Michael was a more efficient scorer than Kobe Bryant, averaging 30 points per game over the course of his career on nearly 50% shooting. A big reason for Jordan's significant edge over Kobe in field goal efficiency was because of MJ's sound decision making. Although Michael is famous for making some difficult shots, he certainly wasn't seeking them out. In his younger years, Jordan scored a large portion of his points in the paint and free throw line. As he aged, his game became more about the mid-range, and he rarely settled for more difficult opportunities, as he used his high basketball IQ to put himself in good positions to score. Although Kobe had many of these same skills as Jordan, the Mamba's supreme confidence led him to take a tremendous amount of difficult shots that most players wouldn't attempt. During his prime, it was common on a nightly basis for him to shoot through double teams, take heavily contested and off-balance shots from the perimeter, and he took a ton of what us hoopers would call heat check shots. Once again, Phil Jackson gave his own perspective on this topic, and said that Jordan always played within the flow of the team's offense and rarely tried to force anything, while Kobe may have been the more explosive player, but he also had a strong of trying to force the situation and take over games offensively. Number 5. Jordan was the more durable athlete. I somewhat alluded to this earlier, but Kobe was dealing with injuries throughout the majority of his career and caused him to miss well over 100 games. Even in the games where he played, he was often dealing with nagging pain in his hands, wrists, shoulders, knees, and ankles. On the other hand, other than Jordan's second season with a broken foot, he rarely missed any games due to an injury and was often performing at full strength. In fact, excluding his second season, Jordan missed only 7 out of a possible 919 games with the Bulls. This was a testament to his stellar conditioning and his God-given athleticism. Number 6. Kobe was better with his left hand. It's not like there's any fancy left-handed specific stats that I can share with you guys, but you'll just have to take my word for it on this one. Now, Jordan has possibly the greatest layup package in history, and a major aspect of that was his incredible ability to finish the play with his left hand. If that was the only aspect we were looking at, then this advantage would go to Jordan. But I'm pretty sure that Kobe still could have been a legit star even if he had to use his left hand as his dominant hand. The Mamba was working on his left-handed game from an extremely early age. When he broke his right hand, he showed up to Lakers practice and shot entirely hand, and when he injured his right shoulder, he played a significant amount of a regular season game with only his left hand. And of course, many of us remember the ridiculous turnaround left-handed 3 against the Dallas Mavericks. If Kobe had to play a mid-range game as a left-handed shooter, he's one of the few stars I believe could still be a successful scorer. Number 7. Michael Jordan had a greater vertical leap. Vertical leap comparisons are usually a sure way to get comment sections in heated debates, because it's hard to get credible and precise estimations of each player's leap. With that being said, most listings have Jordan's leap between 46 and 48 inches, while Kobe's is listed around only 38 inches. Even by just the eye test, it's not hard to see how Jordan could have such a tremendous vertical, considering his iconic and comfortably stylish free throw line dunks, and also how Jordan made his hang time famous by appearing to simply wait in the air for a defender to make his descent. Number 8. Michael Jordan is a more competitive person. Whether this is an advantage for MJ or a problem for MJ is really up to your interpretation. When it comes to their mentalities on the basketball court, both players were about as competitive, driven, and intense as a player could possibly be, but off the court is another story. In Kobe Bryant's own words, Michael Jordan was a more competitive person, from the standpoint that Jordan was competitive about more things. I don't think Kobe would have ever conceded that anyone cared more about the outcome of a basketball game than he did. But in an interview, Kobe explained that he's only extremely competitive about the things he cares about, while Jordan is competitive in absolutely everything. Kobe gave a funny example of a time the two athletes were out to dinner together, how Jordan would eat the food quickly just to finish his meal before Kobe did. There's many more differences between these two great basketball legends, but these were the biggest ones in my opinion.
After the Bulls won their 6th championship ring in 1998, the team imploded due to turmoil between the general manager, the coaches, and the players. Most basketball fans know the details about why this team disbanded, and if you watched the Last Dance documentary that released a few years ago, then you certainly know all about it. But if you don't know the details, you can watch my summarized version with this video. Now, towards the end of that documentary, Michael Jordan talked about how frustrated he was that his Bulls didn't get a chance to win a 7th championship ring in 1999. Phil Jackson retired due to pressure from general manager Jerry Krause. Without Phil Jackson around, Jordan decided to retire from basketball. Without Jordan around, Bulls management determined that they couldn't compete for championships. So they traded Scottie Pippen and Steve Kerr, and they released Dennis Rodman. Jordan was convinced that if Phil Jackson hadn't been pushed out of his coaching position, that entire squad would have returned for a chance to compete for a 7th ring in 1999, and he believed they likely would have won another championship. But is he right? Would the Bulls have won a 4th straight title to close out their dynasty on an even more legendary note? Well, I actually believe this answer is a bit more complicated than people usually recognize. There's a lot of nuance to this hypothetical question, and although there is absolutely no way we can get a definitive answer to something that never happened, at the very least,